Hello everyone and welcome to my channel. This is the 15th part of What If Deku Had a Robot Wolf. I hope you enjoy. Link to the original story and author in the description. Chapter 15, The Battle of the USJ Part 1. Izumi could feel the tension in the air long before she got up out of bed. It wasn't suffocating, but it was there. One look outside told her why she could feel it. The UA Sentinels, an army of combat robots made to protect the school, were on patrol. This made Izumi worried, very worried. The UA Sentinels were designed to protect the school in case of attack. And if they were active, then either UA is under attack or is preparing for one sometime in the near future. A lot of students felt uneasy at the sight of the Sentinels. Yes, they did make them feel safe, but they were all wondering why they were active. Yesterday's break-in by the media shouldn't have required their activation, so why were they active? When asked during homeroom, all Kana said about the matter was the UA Sentinels have been activated as a precaution. After yesterday's break-in, we have to up security for a bit. Don't worry, it's only a precaution. The Sentinels will only be active for a few days. The class had calmed down slightly after that, but they were still on edge. She then went on to explain what the afternoon's training was. Rescue training will be taking place at an off-campus facility, with All Might and 3 other pros supervising the session. Most of the class was excited about the rescue training, as was Izumi, but she also felt worried. There would be 5 pros there with them, 5. That's a good number of pros with one class. Normally there would be 2 or 3. Was this because of the break-in yesterday? The rest of the day went on as normal until they went off for heroics. Everyone got changed into their hero costumes, even Toru, whose new costume was still in development. So for now, she was stuck with boots and gloves. As they made their way towards the bus, they found Nijire waiting for them in her hero costume. Izumi's first thought upon seeing it was, why do most female heroes wear skin-tight bodysuits? At least it's padded for additional protection. You're one to talk, Himiko said with a smirk. Izumi covered her mouth with her hands. She'd been muttering again, sorry. Hey, don't worry about it, Himiko said with a smile. There's no need to apologize. Some of us like this kind of costume. Even if it does draw some unwanted attention, she said, sending a glare towards Minoru. Seriously, how the hell did he end up on the hero course? He used his balls to stop the robots in their tracks and make them easier to destroy, Kyoka said with a frown. And yes, I was in the same field as him. If he so much as touches me, I'm punting him into orbit, Momo said with a frown. Hey, guys. Nijire said with a wave as they walked over to her. I'm super excited to be working with you today. It was annoying that yesterday's lesson was cancelled, but we can use this lesson to catch up on yesterday, she said, before focusing on Izumi. Oh, and thanks for the quirk analysis, Izumi. It's given me a lot more to think about and experiment with. Izumi smiled nervously as several of her classmates groaned. You do know you just made her stronger. Hanta said, looking slightly annoyed. I'm sorry, Izumi said, waving her arms around. She asked me to analyze her quirk, so I analyzed it. Yeah, she gets a bit sidetracked when it comes to examining a new quirk, Hitoshi remarked. I don't mind. Inesa said with a raised fist. It only makes the upcoming fight even more hot-blooded. Hanta sighed. Of course, he would be happy about the increased challenge. Revel in the dark, Fumikage remarked before looking around. So, where's the teachers? I don't know, Nijire replied. Kana told me to wait here for you. She's probably getting one of the other teachers we're supposed to be with. Any idea who it is? Ijiro asked. Nijire shook her head. Nope. She didn't say, she said before she suddenly brightened up. Oh hey, here she comes now. And she's got Snipe with her. The class turned to see their homeroom teacher gradually making her way towards them, walking alongside Snipe. She was laughing as they walked, with a genuine smile on her face. Alwo, they look so cute together, Mina cooed with a smile. I did say they were married, Izumi said as their teacher walked up to them. Greetings all, Kana said with an uncharacteristic smile. I believe you already know who my partner here is, but, as a reminder, this is Snipe. He also teaches heroics, and he'll be joining us for today's field trip. Howdy all. As my wonderful wife just said, I'm Snipe, Snipe said with a wave. I'll be coming along with ya all. Kana smiled before she playfully punched Snipe's shoulder. What have I told you about flirting with me during lessons? Why, not to go overboard, darling, Snipe replied, getting a chuckle out of Kana. So adorable, several of the girls thought. Minoru gulped, now very much glad that it was Himiko he nabbed during the battle trial and not the real Kana. He did not want to give Snipe a reason to be pissed at him. Kana giggled before focusing back on the class. Now then. You all know you're doing rescue training today, so, everyone, board the bus. I do not want to be late. Momo. Tenya said as he raised a hand. I have a possible setting plan for us to use. It's open seating, Nijire said with a smile. Everyone come aboard, aboard. She said as she hopped inside the bus. Everyone slowly made their way on board the bus, passing by a frozen Tenya, who was disappointed that his setting plan was ruined. Curses, he muttered before he followed the others on board the bus. Izumi sat near the back, with Hachiko sitting next to her, Durandal sitting on the floor beside her, Himiko and Tsuyu behind her, and Momo and Hanta in front. She couldn't help but feel suspicious about this placement. Izumi, Tsuyu said behind her a few moments after the bus set off. Yes, Sue. Izumi said as she turned her head to face her. There's something about you that's been bugging me, so apologies if this is insensitive or personal or something like that. So don't feel like you have to answer it, Ribbit, Tsuyu said. Izumi gulped, feeling slightly worried. Is All Might your father? What? Izumi squeaked, going into a slight panic. Was this it? Was this where her secret gets revealed? No, and I have a photo of her dad to prove it, Durandal replied bluntly, drawing everyone's attention away from Izumi. Tsuyu quickly backpedaled. Sorry about that. But, your quirk is a lot like his, Ribbit. Apologies if I made you uncomfortable. Izumi took a few moments to calm herself down. She'd have to thank Durandal later for his quick thinking. It's okay, Sue. I wasn't expecting you to ask that, she said as Hachiko gave her hand a reassuring squeeze. I will admit that my quirk is a bit like All Might's, but quirks that enhance someone's strength are rather common. And whilst I will admit that I may have dreamed that All Might was my father, he isn't. I know my father, and whilst he's not around most of the time, he goes out of his way to support us. Yes, I remember you talking about him on your first day, Momo said. You said he worked on board a Luna harvester. Izumi nodded. Yep. It's why he's not around much. But, he regularly contacts us and provides for us. Although, sometimes I wish I could see him in person more. That's so manly of him, Ijiro said with a smile, looking after his family despite living on the moon. So manly. Is manly the only positive comment you know? Hitoshi asked. No, I know more, Ijiro replied with a smile. Manly is just the best. Hitoshi sighed. If you keep using manly, it's going to lose all meaning. Izumi sighed and shook her head. At least they were distracted now. She was still worried about them finding out about the secrets of her quirk. All Might entrusted her with one for all, and she had to do her best to keep it hidden. Izumi, Hachiko said softly, a soft smile on her face. Don't worry. It's going to be okay. We're just doing rescue training today. No need to worry about anything else, right? Thanks, Hachiko. I just wasn't expecting that, Izumi said with a slight frown. Sorry about asking that question, Izumi, Tsuyu said with a slight frown, but Izumi could tell that she was being sincere. I didn't mean to insinuate anything with that. It's okay, Tsu. You were just curious, Izumi said. Just don't ask that again, okay? I may take a lot of inspiration from the man, but I'm not related to him. I've never even met him before he showed up during our first heroics lesson, she said. It was difficult to say, but she didn't want to tell them that she already knew All Might, mainly to avoid looking like he was showing favoritism towards her. The last thing she wanted was to be singled out again. About 20 minutes later, they arrived at their destination, a massive building with the letters USJ on it, as well as a squad of UA sentinels patrolling the exterior. 6 Victory class, 3 Imperial, and a single Venator. Before UA started using mock versions of Paxton's robots, These were the robots they used for the entrance exam. Once they switched over to the Paxton's robots, they repurposed the old ones as sentinels to protect the school, complete with a brand new white with gold highlight paint job. They even have a fourth one, the massive executor class, but they keep those in storage until they really need them.
Are we doing rescue training at Universal Studios Japan? Rikito asked, looking out of the window towards the building. I didn't think they were located in Mizudafu, Inasa remarked. They're not, Momo said.
Alright, you lot, everyone won out, Kana said before she ushered everyone out of the bus. So, what is this place?
Toru asked, looking around.
This is UA's rescue training facility,
a female voice said.
Everyone turned towards the voice's source. Standing in front of the doors was All Might himself, as well as Horiguramu and a third person wearing a white spacesuit, with a puffy jacket instead of an actual suit, a black helmet with white eyes, and a pair of yellow boots.
Achiko started to fangirl at the sight of the astronaut AHHHH.
It's the Space Hero 13.
She's the reason I wanted to become a rescue hero.
And the hero gushing is spreading, Durandal remarked. Greetings everyone, I am 1313 said I'll be in charge of your rescue training today.
Please follow me inside.
The class followed 13 and the other heroes into the massive building as 13 continued to explain this facility is designed by me to teach upcoming heroes how to conduct rescue operations in all kinds of environments, from floods, ruins, landslides, mountains, storms and fires. You will learn how to deal with them all here. The class looked around the massive facility, seeing the individual zones surrounding the central plaza.
Izumi kept to the middle of the crowd, due to the sheer drop on either side of the ludicrously tall staircase. Seriously, why did it need to be so tall?
It is here where you will be conducting today's rescue training, 13 continued. I call it, the USJ, the Unforeseen Simulation Joint. It's the same as Universal Studios Japan, several students muttered. Now, before we begin, I do have one thing I would like to tell you, 13 said, holding up a finger, before holding up a second, well, maybe two things.
Okay, 3. Or 4 inch.
Horiguramu sighed, just get to the point, 13. Sorry, 13 said, as you may or may not know, my quirk is called Black Hole. Whilst I use my quirk to help rescue people by destroying debris, my quirk can just as easily be used to kill. The entire class shuddered. She was right, some powers could easily be used to kill someone, and a lot of them had quirks that could easily be used to kill someone.
Izumi looked down at her hands, remembering how she had brought down the zero-pointer.
She smashed its chest in.
If that were a human, she would have obliterated them.
She then turned towards Durandal, a robot built by Paxton to kill. The MIWR came with a gun and a rocket launcher, for God's sake, and she was still conflicted about using these.
It was a good reminder that anything could be used to kill.
Through training like this, we will teach you how to not only save people but to show restraint with your quirks, 13 said. You already have a solid idea of your quirk's potential, as well as some experience with how dangerous your powers can be when used against other people. Carry those lessons over to this class. Today, you're going to learn how to use your quirks to save people's lives. You won't be using your powers to attack enemies or each other, only to help. After all, that's what being a hero is all about. Ensuring the safety of others, she said before the light suddenly flickered, followed by Horiguramu's hologram disappearing.
What the hell? Nina shrieked. A large swirling mass of black smoke then appeared in the middle of the plaza and expanded, and a pair of bright yellow eyes appeared within the smoke. A hand then emerged from the smoke, followed by a head with unkempt light blue hair. A large mummified hand covered the man's face, with several others grasping his body. Shit!
Kana cursed as she raised her elbow towards the black smoke, pulling her hand back towards her shoulder as her rifle extended out of her elbow. 13, Nijire, protect the students.
What? Ijiro said, looking confused as more and more people exited the black smoke. Training already? I thought this isn't training, this is a full-on villain attack.
Kana shouted as she loaded her rifle, followed by Snipe pulling out his gun. Now get out of here. The entire class paled.
Villains? As in real villains were attacking them. How? This was UA, the most secure school in the world. How could villains break in here? By now the plaza was full of villains with all kinds of quirks, but 3 stood out. The man covered in hands, the smoke man, and a large monster of a man with dark black skin and prominent green veins, with an exposed brain and beak-like face with rows of exposed teeth. Ribbitsuyu let out a frightened croak, with a look of primal fear on her face. Everyone, follow me, and stay behind me. 13 shouted as she turned and led the class back towards the main entrance. We've got your back, All Might, Snipe said as he leveled his gun towards the horde of villains. All Might nodded before turning towards the approaching villains, his signature smile on full display. With a mighty leap, he jumped forwards, landing at the base of the stairs right in front of the approaching horde. Their confident smirks vanished the moment they laid eyes upon the symbol of peace up close. You villains have made a grave error in being here today. Because I am here. Most of the gathered villains charged him, but they were disorganized. The panic caused by All Might appearing in front of them caused most of them to charge him blindly, not at all organized. Several of them had ranged quirks, but they soon found themselves disabled by well-placed shots to the legs and arms. Shit, they have snipers down mid, the handsman said, standing back and watching All Might fight off the horde of villains. Kirojiri, deal with them. As you wish, the black smoke said before vanishing. He reappeared beneath Kana and Snipe, engulfing them in black smoke before depositing them both into the plaza, a large number of villains surrounding them. Ha! One of the villains scoffed. Not so good in close quarters with that rifle now, are you bitch? He said before Snipe shot the man in the left knee. Please do not refer to my wife in such a vulgar manner, Snipe said before he shot out the guy's other kneecap. Kana smirked before she recalled her rifle back into her arm, and then pulled out a gun similar to Snipe's, as well as a combat knife. Like I'm not familiar with other firearms, she said before the 2 firearm-wielding heroes engaged the surrounding villains, proving that, even though they had guns, they could safely disable someone without killing them. Unaware that the hands villain was watching them closely. Ha! Looks like the pros do live up to the hype, the handsman said, sounding slightly annoyed, scratching the left side of his neck. How annoying. Whilst the other teachers were busy, 13 was leading the back students towards the main entrance, which unfortunately was closed. Come on you lot, we're almost there. 13 shouted as they approached the door. Not so fast, a sinister voice said. Moments later the students were engulfed in black mist. Izumi yelped as her surroundings suddenly shifted, and the ground gave way beneath her. She froze up the moment she felt her body fall, eyes wide open as she hurtled towards the ground, unaware of what lay beneath her. Izumi! Achiko's voice shouted before the gravity girl rocketed into Izumi and grabbed her, using her quirk to slow down their descent before writing both of them Izumi. Look at me! She said as she placed a hand against the side of Izumi's head and moved it so that she was looking directly into the girl's green eyes. Osi Hako? Izumi stuttered as she looked into Achiko's auburn brown eyes. I promised you, didn't I? That I would be there to catch you if you fall, Achiko said softly, with a smile. I'm here for you, as I always will be. Now please, close your eyes. I'll get us down safely. Izumi's eyes widened. She couldn't believe this. Achiko had kept her promise, she had caught her when she fell. No one had ever kept a promise to her before unless you count the times Katsuki promised to beat her up. Tears started to form around her eyes. "Titi, thank you," she said before she closed her eyes, trusting Achiko to bring her down safely. Keeping them shut until she felt her feet touch the ground. Okay, you can open your eyes now, Achiko said as she released her quirk. Izumi opened her eyes and looked around. She was standing on a large boat in the middle of a large lake, with a massive water slide close by. A quick look around revealed that yes, they were still in the USJ, the flood zone by the looks of it. We're still in the USJ? Izumi said nervously as she looked around, still in shock from the fall. We must have been hit by a warping quirk of some kind and scattered around the facility. But why? I don't know, Achiko said. I hope everyone else is okay, she said before Minoru slammed onto the deck next to them, hard. Followed by Tsuyu landing next to them. Ribbit Tsuyu croaked weakly, shivering slightly. But she didn't look cold.
It looked more like she was shivering with fear. "Sue," Achiko said as she and Izumi rushed over to her, "Are you okay?" "As okay as I could be, given the circumstances," Ribbit Suyu replied, sounding shaken. "I'd be better, but that thing, the massive monster with the green veins, it's dash. It's got signs of being mutated by mutator," Izumi said with a frown. Suyu nodded before she pulled down the sleeve of her lower right arm, revealing it had green veins on it. "I usually use makeup to keep these hidden, but I ran out, so I could only cover my face and hands. Everyone he mutated has them, even those who only mutated slightly. They covered the entire body." She shuddered as tears started to fall from her eyes. "That person back there, he's been mutated by mutator." "But that can't be possible, he's dead. He can't mutate anyone anymore." Hey, Su Achiko said as she put her arms around Suyu, the frog girl rib-biting softly. "It's going to be okay. We won't have to fight it, just focus on finding our friends, and getting the hell out of here." "You can do that, right?" Suyu wiped a tear away from her eyes and nodded. "I should be able to, Ribbit. Just try to keep us away from that thing. Please." "Don't worry, I won't take us anywhere near that thing," Izumi said, sounding a bit shaky before looking around. "Wait, where's Durandal?" "I didn't see him get dropped with us, so he's probably somewhere else," Achiko replied with a frown. She put her hand on Izumi's shoulder. "Don't worry, he'll be fine. He's still here so we can find him. That or he will find us." "Is anyone going to ask if I'm fine?" Minoru asked loudly. Achiko turned and looked at him with a frown. "Are you okay?" Minoru stood up. "Well, yes, but dash." "Good," Achiko said, interrupting him. "Now shut up and let us plan how we're going to get out of here. We're surrounded by villains and we can't plan with you whining." "We're what?" Izumi shuddered. "Oh, right. Sorry, I might have forgotten to mention that Suyu said there are a lot of villains with aquatic quirks surrounding the boat. I kicked one in the face whilst I was rescuing Minoru." Izumi quickly walked over to the edge of the ship and looked over the side, and saw at least 24 villains in the water around them. All of them were eyeing them up. So that's why they were split up. Separate the students into more manageable groups to make them easier to kill. That's it then, we're dead. Minoru shouted, "I can't believe I'm going to die without ever touching Momo's breasts." Suyu let out an annoyed sigh. "I'd say we could use him as bait, but that's not a heroic thing to do." Achiko shook her head. "No, it's not. They're not attacking," Izumi said, turning back towards the others. "What?" both Suyu and Achiko said, sounding surprised as they turned towards her. "Why are they holding back?" Achiko wondered. "Surely they could easily overwhelm us?" "I mean, they could," Izumi said, "but I think they are being cautious. They don't know our quirks. By the looks of it, we were randomly dropped here. They don't know what we're capable of or what our quirks are." "She has a point, Ribbit," Suyu said. "If they knew what our quirks are, they wouldn't have dumped me here." "Too bad Denki isn't here, we could have zapped all of them." "No, but we can pretend to have one," Achiko said, keeping her voice low. She turned to Izumi. "Izumi, your quirk. When you activate full cowling, you have green lightning arcing around your body. You can use that to make it look like you have an electricity quirk." Izumi's eyes widened. "Yes, that's perfect. Thank you, Achiko," she said with a smile. "This might just work. Electricity and water do not mix, and if they make the villains think they have an electricity quirk, they'll think twice before trying to attack them. The last thing they'll want is a girl who could produce lighting falling into the water." She walked back over to the edge of the ship and activated full cowling, green lightning crisscrossing across her body. She then realized that making a plan like this was a lot easier than executing it because those villains looked very scary, and she was suddenly very nervous about this. "Come on, Izumi, you can do this. You've been able to lie to your friends, you can lie to a bunch of villains," she thought. She took a deep breath before she opened her mouth, only to watch as one of the villains, a man with a shark mutation, was dragged underwater, to not only her surprise but the surprise of the other villains. That wasn't one of us who did that, right?" "A villain with ash blonde hair," transparent blue goggles and holding a spear, asked before the shark villain's body floated back to the surface, minus a head and blood pooling around it. What the dash? The goggles villain gasped before he was dragged beneath the water, quickly followed by another villain. Oh god, Izumi thought. Something had just killed a man, something had just killed a man right in front of her, and was still killing. Get out of the water. The words couldn't have left her mouth quicker. These people may have come here to cause them harm, but not even they deserved what was happening down there. The group of villains, what was left of it, quickly swam towards the ship, panic gripping them as they were dragged down one by one. Some were faster than others due to their quirks, but they were among the first to be dragged beneath the water, leaving the slower swimmers till last. Izumi, Achiko, Tsuyu and Minoru could only watch in horror as the villains were picked off one by one, till there was only one left. The last villain, a man wearing a black, full-body wetsuit whose face had the appearance of a skull, leapt out of the water and grabbed hold of the side of the ship. But he slipped and ended up hanging from the edge with one arm, trying desperately to climb up. Help him up! Izumi shouted as she reached down and grabbed the villain's arm, with Achiko quickly coming to help as well. Villain or not, they weren't going to just abandon the guy to whatever the hell was down there. The villain seemed to have the same idea as well, realizing that it was a lot safer on the ship than in the water. Why are you helping him? Minoru asked as they helped the villain up. We're not leaving him down there. Izumi shouted as they helped the man up. But, just as they were about to pull him onto the deck, something shot out water and sliced off the man's arm. Izumi and Achiko could only watch in horror as the man they were trying to save was pulled back screaming into the water and dragged beneath it, all the while holding his severed arm. Izumi let out a low shriek as she let go of the severed appendage, and fell back onto the deck of the ship. She failed. She failed to save him. She wasn't quick enough, not strong enough. He may have been a villain, but he didn't deserve to die like that. What was that? Tsuyu croaked, covering her mouth as she tried desperately to hold in her stomach's contents. Before anyone could reply, there was another splash followed by something leaping out of the water. Everyone looked up as the thing came down, and froze at the sight of it. It was a strider, but it was different from the ones UA used. Its metal body was painted a light blue, with its body having been modified for better movement underwater. Its singular eye was red and sinister, and both of its arms ended with blades. Blades that were covered in blood. This wasn't one of the villain bots UA uses, this was a genuine Avalon incorporated strider. And it was killing people. Move! Achiko shouted as she grabbed Izumi, making the girl weightless so that it would be easier for her to drag her away. Tsuyu moved quickly as well, grabbing Minoru with her tongue and jumping out of the way of the strider. The strider embedded its blades into the deck, right where Izumi used to be. It then stood up straight, towering over the four teenagers, and gave chase. Its long legs made it much faster than them. Izumi could only watch as the robot got closer and closer to them, whilst she herself was dragged through the air behind Achiko. That robot just murdered over a dozen people, and now it was coming to kill them. Even though she was scared out of her mind, she had to do something, but what? This robot is a lot tougher than the ones from the entrance exam, and she didn't know if 5.5% would be enough to destroy it. And if it wasn't, she'd be left wide open. Her full power would be more than enough to destroy it, but she had no idea how many other robots like this one there are, and breaking her arm was not an option, not when there could be more of these robots and villains here. It kind of made sense against the massive zero-pointer, not against a robot that was an ant in comparison to a titan. She needed a way to use her full power without breaking her entire arm and leaving her crippled. But, what if she didn't use her entire arm? She quickly looked down at her fingers as an idea formed inside her mind. What if she focused all of her power through her finger? Would that work? She would only be left with a broken finger, not an entire broken arm. Fuck it. Plus ultra. She aimed her arm at the approaching robot and prepared to flick her middle finger at it, and steadied it with her other arm. Her arm was shaking badly, so she would have to wait for the robot to be close, but this could work. She waited until the robot was right on top of them before she channeled one for all through her middle finger and flicked. The resulting shockwave may have sent her flying back into Achiko, which set both of them to the ground, but it also completely obliterated the robot, as well as most of the top deck. Rib bit. Tsuyu let out a surprised croak as she turned and surveyed the damage. Holy cow! Minoru shrieked, having had a front row seat to the devastation. What the hell did you just do? Used my quirk, Izumi said through gritted teeth, hand around her broken finger whilst she floated. It hurt like hell, but it was worth it. Couldn't risk using it at my safe maximum, and I didn't know how strong I would have to be to destroy it. So I went all out. Focused all of it through my finger. And created a shockwave that destroyed the robot, Achiko said with a slight smile as she helped Izumi down and deactivated her quirk. That's amazing, Izumi. Thanks. Hurts like hell, but I didn't break my entire arm doing it, Izumi said with a weak smile. Ha, talk about giving someone the finger, a cold and calm voice said. It was male, but sounded like it came from an adult. Izumi looked around in a panic, trying to find the source of the voice, but there was no one there. And it certainly wasn't Minoru. This voice sounded much, much older than that little shit. She shook her head. Maybe her mind was playing tricks on her and causing her to hear voices. So, I'm not the only one who's thinking it, Tsuyu said with a shudder. That was one of Paxton's robots, wasn't it? Izumi nodded. Yes it was. Even had Avalon Incorporated's its logo on its shoulder pads. Isn't Avalon Incorporated gone? Minoru asked. The company and the man behind it are. Yes, Izumi replied, but a lot of Paxton's minions survived and are still at large. I don't know why that robot was here, but it's clearly not on the same side as those villains, she said with a frown. She was worried, very worried. If Avalon robots were here, then things were about to get bloody. So, we're under attack from two separate groups then, Achiko said, one being the remnants of Avalon Incorporated. I just hope our classmates aren't having to deal with these robots as well. I doubt it, Izumi said as she sat down and leaned against a surviving part of the top deck. There's going to be more of those robots here, one for each zone. And I highly doubt they are the only ones here. Someone has to be commanding them. We need to get back to shore quickly, find our classmates, and get out of here. If more of those robots show up, we won't last long. Achiko nodded before she touched the ship with her hand, activating her quirk. I can move us towards the shore. It won't be quick, but we should be safe. Right, I forgot you can move things that you use your quirk on with your mind, Ribbit, so you said you sure you'll be fine doing this? Achiko nodded. As long as I don't try and lift it I should be fine. Let's just hope our classmates and the teachers are okay, Izumi said, looking back towards the entrance and hoping that Durandal and the others were fine. Meanwhile, back at the main entrance. Well, you went down like a bitch, Durandal scoffed as he stood atop the villain who had warped all the other villains here. His clawed tail was inches away from the villain's throat. The villain had also scattered the entire class, leaving himself, 13 and Nijire at the entrance. As well as the 10 UA sentinels who barged through the door and brought the villain down, one of which was possessed by Horigaramu. The guy didn't last long once they showed up, and was taken down quickly. Shockingly, the villain wasn't completely made of smoke, there was a body underneath all that smoke, with a metal neck brace. Obviously, it was designed to protect the guy's neck. Which made finding it easy. You three alright? The Horigaramu-possessed Venator asked as the 9 other robots secured the area. Due to the jamming field in place, she couldn't access the cameras or make projections of herself, but she could possess machines, as long as they were connected to a hardline. We're fine, 13 replied, but this villain took the students somewhere, but I don't know where. The tracking implants in their costumes are still functional, Horigaramu said. They're all still in the USJ, but I can't get a lock on them and can't access their vitals. I have no idea what condition they are in. Oh, thank the gods, Nijire said with a relieved sigh. Do we have help coming? Backup is on the way. ETA 10 minutes, Horigaramu said. Blossom is en route with the rest of the teachers, as well as 2 platoons of UA sentinels. Hear that, villain, you and your friends are fucked. Durandal said before he laughed. Now then, talk. Who are you and why are you here?
And don't try to warp away, otherwise, I'll rip your throat out. Durandal, 13 said, can you please not be so antagonistic towards him? Yeah, let me just forget that this bastard took Izumi as well as the entire class to who knows where, Durandal said. Had it been Izumi telling him to tone it down he would have complied, but it wasn't. The smoke villain scoffed, and here I thought this was a hero school. It is. But as you can see, I am not a hero. I am a pissed-off robot whose charge you took and dumped somewhere, Durandal said, now talk. The villain's eyes narrowed. I am Kurogiri, of the League of Villains. Seriously, League of Villains. That's rather generic, Nijire remarked. In fact, that's got to be the most generic villain group name ever, of all time. She has a point, your group's name is rather generic, Durandal remarked. I'd ask if you have a marketing department, but judging by your name, I highly doubt you do. So, what brings you morons here? Simple, Kurogiri replied in a condescending tone. We are here to kill All Might. Really? Nijire asked, tilting her head to the side, because you don't look to have the capability to do that. If Kurogiri had a mouth underneath all that smoke, then he would have been smirking. Oh, don't let this little incident fool you. We are more than capable of killing All Might. Well, that's annoying, a condescending voice said before two of the victory bots were swiftly destroyed, followed by a sharp spear pierced straight through 13's helmet, splattering droplets of blood over Nijire and Durandal. 13. Nijire screamed as the spear was pulled out of the space hero's head. Her limp body collapsed, revealing a man dressed like a Greek hoplite, with an exoskeleton built into his armor. The man smirked, because that's precisely what I don't want to happen. Argonaut, Durandal growled. One of his creator's more loyal minions, and a certified hero killer who has killed top 10 heroes from across the globe. If he was here, then they were all fucked. You bastard! Horigaramu shouted as she and the other UA sentinels engaged Argonaut, but the man was too quick. Dancing around the bullets as he skipped around destroying each robot one by one. The commotion allowed Kurogiri to warp himself away. Horigaramu fired everything the Venator she was possessing had, but she wasn't used to this kind of combat. She was used to creating projections, not remote controlling a robot. And soon even the Venator she was using was destroyed by him, leaving the VTuber hero with no coverage of the USJ. Nijire wave, pike! Nijire shouted as she channeled her normal Nijire wave into a point. It was a move she developed thanks to Izumi's notes, but she hadn't had much time to practice with it. Argonaut smirked as he easily dodged Nijire's attack, leaping over towards the third-year student and slicing at her chest with his spear. She let out a loud cry of pain as the blade sliced down her chest. It didn't cut deep, but it hurt and left her open for a follow-up job to the chest. Well, it would have, had Durandal not grabbed the spear. You're not killing anyone else, Durandal growled with a hateful glare. Ah, a competent robot, Argonaut said with a condescending smirk. You'll last slightly longer than the others. Durandal scoffed. Whatever you say, Argohor. A shocked look appeared on Argonaut's face. Durandal would be smirking if he had a mouth. One of the many things he managed to escape with after he rebelled was the psych profiles of his minions, which included some very juicy details, such as who they hate and what cruel nicknames they give each other. Durandal used this opening to cut Argonaut's spear in half and throw the end towards him. Argonaut quickly deflected the spearhead and pulled out his sword. Are you one of that bastard mechanist's machines? He asked angrily, clearly pissed off by Durandal's words. Durandal laughed a laugh that would be familiar to anyone who knew Paxton. Oh, don't make me laugh. As if that Fallout reject could make something as complex as me. Oh no, I was made by a far greater intelligence. I think you know him. In fact, you used to work for the bald-headed bastard. A shocked look appeared on Argonaut's face as he realized just who had made Durandal, a look that was only shared slightly by Nijire. Oh, don't look so surprised, Durandal said as he put a paw onto one of the destroyed robots. His spine once more started to glow green, but he wasn't healing his body. Instead, he was adding something, a large chainsaw on the end of his tail. It's not like he's alive to tell you about me. My only regret is that I never got to kill Paxton myself. That will be it for this part.
I hope everyone enjoyed. If you did, please leave a like and comment if you want part 16. If you want to hear more from me, subscribe. I hope to see you all in the next one.